10 of my friends were shot dead beside me. So to go back to them days is unthinkable.
I'm Peter Oborne. I've been coming to Ireland for 4 decades and I've got many, many close Irish friends. As a reporter, I covered the Irish peace process, and then I voted Brexit just 3 years ago. Recently, I've been coming to suspect that I made a terrible mistake, and we're on our way now from Dublin to Armagh to see what the prospect of a hard border and a no-deal Brexit and the abolition of the backstop means for ordinary people living around here. "30 years ago, what would this town have been like?"
It was scary. It would have been full of soldiers. Everyone scared of each other. The army was scared. We were scared. Everyone frightened. When I was a child, we used to put, and the Protestants also, I've spoke to them now, we're allowed to. We all used to, when we were kids, 7 or 8 years of age, all used to put sofas and chairs up against the wall to prevent the UVF from coming in and killing us. Fear breeds hatred.
So your message to the British government is what?
Get real.
That's very good. Thank you.
I think London, if they had their way, they would just get shut off Northern Ireland altogether. Mm-hmm. They want nothing to do with them. And honestly, don't think the South wants the North as well. I think we're just in limbo up here.
I mean, this town here, you saw some very tough times during the Troubles, didn't you?
Well, I was, desperate, got badly hit. I was the sole survivor of the King's Mill. Where 10 of my friends were shot dead beside me. So to go back to them days is unthinkable.
You were a British soldier in the...
No, we were just coming from work.
Yeah, oh gosh, right, sorry, yeah. Coming back from work, yeah?
Yeah. And the IRA stopped us, lined us up against the minibus and shot us.
You were one of those in the bus?
Yeah. I was the only one survived.
Right.
10 of my friends were shot dead. To even think about going back to them, it's unthinkable.
So I know, I've heard of that terrible event. And you actually survived it. What's your name, sir?
Alan Black.
Alan Black. And so for you, it would be a betrayal of history, really, for Britain.
Of course it would. I mean, from the 1990s, late 1990s, we have it's not perfect by any means a peace, by no means perfect, but it is a peace. My grandkids can grow up without worrying about bomb or bullet. And to go back to them days is unthinkable. And this is what Brexit's going to do to us if they put a hard border up. Because you're going to get the hard men coming out of the woodwork and they're going to start attacking border posts, which means sending police to protect them and army to protect the police. It's unthinkable. It's going to be a disaster.
That was very sobering. The first person I talked to was Alan Black, the only living survivor of the terrible King's Mill massacre, when people were taken out of the bus, lined up and shot and killed. And it's one of the most notorious events of the Troubles. And that was him. And he was talking about the dangers of going back to a hard border and all the tensions and the danger and the horror, potentially, that can involve. I've been talking to several people in the village here, and one of them said, well, we feel sort of forgotten.
Yes. You see, I think it's fair to say that when the referendum was fought, there was little or no regard given to the position of Northern Ireland and the impact that a vote to leave would particularly have. Politically, I think Democratic Unionist Party saw it as a shot to nothing.
In England, and this was essentially an English referendum really, they never understood that the part of Britain has a land border with the EU, and how would you manage that?
Yeah. No, I'm ashamed to say that I was part of that. I didn't understand it. I didn't, and it's unforgivable, given the very ancient history we have of tragic conflict and the miracle almost which has occurred in the last quarter century. So I feel quite ashamed to have come to this so late.
But if you look at the Irish identity versus British identity, the two identities in this part of Ireland, you know, the Irish identity wants to feel that you can be Irish, you can pursue your Irishness within the context of a six-county state. The British identity wants to be able to pursue its British identity. We struck a very delicate balance for about 10, 15 years with the Assembly where, you know, you could speak the language, you could pursue your Gaelic Athletic Association interests through your sport and through everything else, and that there was nobody feeling that you were being subversive or that your position was not valid. 3 or 4 years, all of that has been turned upside down.
Up on the border, we heard really a story of unintended consequences, how Brexit threatens the lives of ordinary people and may even lead to a kind of repudiation of the Good Friday Agreement. Now I've come to the Dáil, and I want to hear whether Dublin feels that something can be done to save relations between Britain and Ireland.
And as you've said before, one of the real worries is that this issue didn't come up during the referendum. And it was quite clear to us that a bad Brexit, a no-deal Brexit, or just something that doesn't get it right, is a real threat to this stability. And that's not just our political opinion. We've heard that repeatedly from the PSNI. You put up CCTV or a check, it becomes a target.
Yeah, and it was quite clear. We were there all day at the border, and a lot of people we spoke to, locals who know what they're talking about, no axe to grind. So they're not going to stay up very long with anything like that.
No, and this whole thing that it's not an issue just doesn't cut it when you go and visit it. And there isn't a comparison to be made with Sweden and Norway or USA and Canada or Turkey and Greece.
Or as Mr. Johnson sort of really badly, he said Chelsea and Westminster, I think he said, or two London boroughs, you know, it's no more difficult than going between two London boroughs. That is absurd, isn't it? It's actually worse than absurd. It's misleading, and it's being reckless with people's lives and reckless with history. Lovely Blackberries here. Fairly then.
Say hello to London for me and the Grenadier. I used to work there. Great pub.
All right.
Welton Road, Belgravia.
Look, it's a great pub, yes.
Oh, says that.
Yes, I know. Oh, you've got to go. Senator Richmond told me several things I didn't know before I sat down with him. One of them was the staggering fact that Boris Johnson never went to the Irish border when he was British Foreign Secretary, and he's certainly not been there as Prime Minister. I worked with Mr. Johnson for many years. I know him extremely well. He's one of the most brilliant brains, political brains, that I've ever encountered. Doesn't he care about the Good Friday Agreement? Is he unaware of the hundreds of years of tragic history which links Britain and Ireland? Doesn't he give a damn? It's time that he woke up.
My grandkids can grow up without worrying about bomb or bullet. And to go back to them days is unthinkable.